People don't want to go back to the office. They don't even understand why they would. That's why this next part might shock you. For 10 years, our company was 100% remote. No offices, no commute, Slack, Zoom, laptops around the world. I told everyone who did it the other way, they were morons, and we scaled from zero to over $75 million in a decade. We did 8 figures multiple years in a row, and at one point we were doing over $1 million a month, all remote. And then we made the bold move that no one expected. We brought almost everyone back into the office. So why would we go against the trend? By the end of this video, you'll see why. I'll walk through the big problems with remote. I'll also talk about the 3 reasons I didn't go in office sooner. And then most importantly is 5 specific lessons that I've learned a year into this journey, going from 0 in-person employees to 20 plus. Now, first off, let's talk about the problem with remote. I know I'm gonna get a ton of heat on this. Go ahead and tell me in the comments why I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to speak on this better than almost anyone. We were remote before remote was cool. We did it all the way back to 2014. Remote work was incredible for a decade. We hired from anywhere. We saved a ton of money. We grew like crazy, but eventually something broke. And I had to look in the mirror and say, you know that quote, what got us here won't get us there. And so we had to pivot. And I looked around and I said, all of the biggest companies that I know about have an in-person office and are in person. I can literally count on one hand how many people who are at where we're trying to go are doing so all remote. So I think the question that you got to ask sometimes as an entrepreneur is, do I want to swim against the tide and defy the odds, which is way harder? Or do I want to stack the odds in my favor? There's one thing that all these folks have in common, but I think I'm so heroic and different that I'm just going to do it the other way. Maybe it can work, but there's a point where I said what got us here won't get us there. So when I looked in the mirror, I realized that there was 3 reasons why I didn't go in person sooner. Number 1, I didn't want to be tied down to one location. All right, so selfish reasons. I'm like, why would I open up an office? I don't even know if I'm going to live in this city. Secondly, I was scared of commitment. Don't ask me where else this is showing up in my life. And then number 3, remote made hiring easier and cheaper. We were able to get the best talent from anywhere in the world. So those are the 3 reasons why I didn't do it. And I had to come to terms with, is the upside worth more than the downside? I said yes and took the plunge. So finally, I made the big decision to open an in-person office. And over the last 12 months, we've went from 0 to over 20 people in person. The energy is electric. Collaboration is awesome. Culture is becoming our competitive advantage again. And guess what? $1 million months are back and they're here to stay. It's not about desks or coffee machines. It's about proximity. So here's the 5 things that I learned in the process of building out this office over the last year. Number 1, culture and collaboration grows at the speed of trust, clarity, and proximity. So I was thinking about this, and I've especially realized this over the last year. You wouldn't try to run your family remotely. You wouldn't try to run a high-performing sports team remotely. Imagine if you just saw your family or you just saw your sports team 3 times a year. That's what we were doing previously. I feel like we were doing a really good job of creating a virtual culture. A lot of people come to me for that. We've got videos on this channel about that, about how do you create an awesome virtual culture. We had very intentional things like, hey, you got to be on camera if you're on a Zoom meeting. You know, we're doing in-person offsites once, twice, 3 times a year. It's like there was all these components of the culture that were optimizing and improving relationships, but you can only do so much. I mean, literally, I've worked with some people for 5 years, and I'm like, I've never met your spouse. I've never met anyone else in your family, and I've seen you in person 10 times. It's hard to build relationships, and it's hard to collaborate. So that's one of the things that just instantly became clear when we opened up the office. Culture is now growing faster. I can take someone out to dinner. We can go on the boat. We're in person 5 days a week, right? So we're learning about each other. We're building trust. So that's where I think it's really an accelerant. And then the collaboration and problem solving piece, it's not even close. If you think about onboarding, and this was one of the core problems I wanted to solve, is like, how do we onboard and train up people faster? How do we build a culture of high performance and high accountability and go hit big goals? Like those are kind of 3 of the core things I was trying to solve. You onboard way faster when you just put someone down at a desk right next to someone. Right now, we got really good onboarding checklists and all the things, but it's like at a certain point, you got to be super intentional if you're remote, and you got to put a meeting on their calendar or Slack call them or Zoom them or whatever else. And I found what was happening with us is we thought we were doing a good job training people remotely, and we really weren't. We would give them 2 or 3 hours of our time in week 1. which for a lot of people, that's not enough. If you want to accelerate culture, you want to accelerate collaboration, you got to get in person. The difference between sending a Slack message, waiting for 3 hours to get this detrimental access issue or thing fixed, and just walking over to someone and saying, hey, can you help me with this? Or, hey, I need access with this. Or, hey, let's jam on this idea. 9-day difference. Number 2, there's a critical mass of around 7 people where energy takes off. So one of the goals of doing this is I wanted to create an environment and energy where people dropped into that environment and you instantly get higher energy, you get more productive, all that stuff. This is a big takeaway for me is years ago, I had someone come to work with me from Chick-fil-A. And he said, Chandler, the biggest adjustment I've had to make is you don't step into the energy, you have to create the energy. He said, when I was working at Chick-fil-A, I would show up at the location and you get in the energy and it would help me perform at a really high level. Here, I'm in my home office by myself. So it's all up to me to come with the energy. And as humans, we have ups and down days, right? So I wanted to say, hey, how can we create a container where when people get there, it elevates, like a rising tide lifts all boats, like we create that container. And what I realized is that early on when we're at 2 people, when we're at 5 people, it's really hard. The office is quiet, it's kind of dead. If somebody's out sick or at an event or whatever, it's like there's 2 people there and inevitably everyone's just kind of looking around, especially if you're coming from a remote environment, like, why are we here? It's like, I could just do this at home. But there was a tipping point at about 7 people. Now I get my journey is probably very different from other people who are opening offices from scratch because we had 60 people. And I said, well, we're going to relocate some of these positions in person. So we were able to accelerate that. Some people, you're a small company, you're not going to get to 7 people until like 2 or 3 years in. So kind of choose your own adventure. But the biggest challenge, which was also the biggest opportunity for me, is I'm trying to go from 0 to 100 very quickly. Now that means we screwed a lot of stuff up, but it also means we were able to get to that critical mass. And that's where the energy really started to take off. Number 3, hiring locally is way harder. It's not even close. I underestimated this. Not only is it harder, but it's a totally different playbook. Previously, when we would hire for positions, we would blast it out to our email list. I'd put it on my social media, all this stuff. We get flooded with applicants, the best of the best from all around the country, all around the world. That's no longer an option. Like that playbook just doesn't work when you're in person. It's who is the best person within 20 minutes of our office. That's a hard question. It really limits your talent pool. I now understand what my mom and dad are talking about. You know, my dad runs a small town construction business and he's like, man, it's really hard to find talent. I'm like, Dad, what are you talking about? Talent is everywhere. Well, it turns out when you got that little pin in a 20-mile radius, it's a lot harder. So you got to change the playbook. And so instead of going on, just mass blasting to our own personal network, we've had to relearn how to hire locally. Now I've got a whole other video. If you want to learn how to hire, I'm not going to go into that playbook here, but it's called the A-player hiring process. We hire at a really high level. Check out that video. There's our hiring 201 video. A lot of those things are applicable either way, but in person, you got to look at Indeed. You got to look at local job sites. So like Built in Austin is a local site. There's stuff like that to say, how do we get this position in front of the best people locally? And then how do you do that when you've only got 2 or 3 people? Well, we got to start getting referrals. So that's another thing where we hit that critical mass of around 7 people. Now all of a sudden we've got people who know other people who can refer them to work at this organization. Now, one big difference hiring in person versus hiring remote is there's just things that matter that never mattered before. And I've learned this the hard way. We've churned really good people because I didn't focus on these fundamentals. There's kind of 2 or 3 things. How long is your commute? Have you done that commute before? Have you ever worked full-time in person or not? And are you currently working full-time in person? When's the last time you worked full-time in person? Like those are a handful of questions that if the answer to any of those is no matter how talented the person is, it probably doesn't make sense unless it's a significantly better opportunity for them. You got to put yourself in their shoes. Like, why would I give up remote work? I haven't had a commute, or, hey, I know I can make it work. It's like a 45-minute commute, but it's totally fine. This takes me back to my days running a painting business where my manager always said, Chandler, they're going to say it's fine in the interview. At about 1 or 2 months in, they're like, man, this is a grind. So you got to be really intentional about that. And I made a ton of exceptions early on. It didn't work. So I've had to learn that the hard way. And then also you kind of need to just be really freaking clear about what you're doing. I chose to take the path of, I'm like, hey, if we're spending all this money, we're opening up an office. I'm making a massive investment in person. I'm not going to halfway do it. So I don't want to get into these conversations about like, is this hybrid? Is this remote? What days are we coming in office? Oh, you're coming in these days? Well, I need to make sure. It's just like you're wasting a ton of time. Either you're doing it or you're not. Right, which we have some flexibility. There's emergency work from home days or stuff like that to provide flexibility with our people, but we're default on. We are making a bet. We believe in this thing. Don't muddy the waters. So be clear about that. And also be clear, it's not for everyone. So we put it on our job postings. We talk about it in every interview like, hey, this is not for you if you want a remote chill gig. This ain't it. But if you want to build something great, you want to be in person, you get energy from that, cool. I think you're going to really love this. So be clear who it's for and who it's not for. Number 4, problem solving in person versus remote. It's not even close. Okay. The stuff we were doing remotely to solve problems, to collaborate, it was good. And I'm talking about like we learned this over a decade. We got better at it. Let's do this hackathon. Let's do whatever else. In person goes way faster, right? I mean, it's just the ability to get people in a room and say, we're solving this thing. We're not leaving until we solve it. We're building a media team in person. And what I'm finding is just the rhythms are accelerating. It's like you're able to look over someone's shoulder and say, you can improve that, this way, right? And just like those little bitty things that help solve a problem or make something better. The wheels are greased when you can just walk over to someone's office and you get the answer versus just sending them a message and waiting forever. Number 5, commute time can be a gift. Now, this is one of the big reasons why I didn't want to go in person. I hate wasting time. I will go to extreme lengths not to waste time. So what I've learned a year into this is that if you believe in what you're building, it's worth it. And that time can actually be a gift. For me, there's 3 big benefits and ways I use it. Number 1, it's Windshield University. So I'm listening to an audiobook or a podcast or something else. I love getting that time back. When you're at home, you kind of never have that. Secondly, I use it to call people that I wouldn't otherwise call. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of horrible about keeping up with people and making the call to my mom or my friends or whatever. So now I've got that built in time. I might as well use it. And so I found myself keeping in touch with people better, having better relationships as a result. And then number 3, it's reflection and clarity. On the way into the office, I'm getting mentally prepped. So when I get into the office, it's like, boom, I'm hitting the ground running. And on the way home, that might be the most important one, is I'm using it to decompress. So when I show up at home, I'm showing up at home for the people that I love. So those are the 5 things I've learned over the last year building out an in-person office. We made a ton of mistakes. I'm sure we're going to make a bajillion more, but we're learning. And if you're anything like me, you want to learn from people who are a couple steps ahead. So if you're thinking about opening an office or just taking your office to the next level, well, this is advice from 12 months in the future. My big thing that I would emphasize here is if you're going to do it, do it. Poop or get off the pot. Like, don't have to do it. And that's a big mistake I made, is that we started hiring people like an hour from Austin. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. No, either do it or don't half commit. Have your convictions and either decide to do it or decide to stay remote. That's okay. Here's the playbook for leaders. If you're considering bringing your team back into the office or creating an office, do these things. Number 1, start small with a hub office. Number 2, make the office a magnet, not a mandate. Number 3, lead by example. Okay, you can't ask people to do the thing that you're not willing to do. So from day 1, I was like, hey, I'm going to be there 5 days a week. I only ask my people to do things that either I am doing or I have done. And then lastly, be clear about who it's for and who it's not for, right? It's not for everyone. Be super upfront about that. But then the payoff or the result is you get a stronger culture. You get faster decisions. You get more innovation, and you get a team that's more motivated than ever. We still have remote team members. They're awesome. We love them. I'm not planning to change that, but every new hire is in person. Right? That kind of gives us the best of both worlds. We've got global reach and talent where we need it, and we've got local roots that we're building in person. For me, this is playing to my strengths. I feel like I'm not good managing people remotely. In text communication, I'm a little crass. But when I get in person with someone, I'm generally likable and kind of an in-person person. So I will be more encouraging, or I'll give them direct feedback. It comes across better. So play to your strengths. Your turn. If you're leading an in-person or hybrid team, drop a comment. I'd love to hear what's working for you. We haven't figured it all out. We're still figuring things out, but one thing's clear, culture builds faster when you're together. So I'd love to hear what works for you. How do you design an office culture that's awesome. Share your tips in the comments. If you disagree with me, you think remote is the only way, comment below. If you're hybrid, I think you're a moron. That's not really that smart. You can try to convince me otherwise in the comments if you want. So that's it. I hope this video was helpful. If you found this video helpful, I want you to do two things right now. Number one, subscribe to the channel. We drop videos every single week as helpful as possible to help you scale to 8 figures and beyond. So if you like this, you'll love some of our other videos, go ahead and subscribe. And then secondly, comment below with your biggest takeaway. I read and respond to every single comment. I'll see you in the next video.